Hi everyone, this is my mini study analysis table. My research topic is what are the effects on the newborn when a mother smokes in her first trimester, and does cigarette quantity change these statistics? The reason that I chose this topic for a clinical reason is that I believe that significant research backing up smoking in pregnancy would be incredibly beneficial to clients in the future. And the reason I chose this topic personally is because we actually did have a client that admitted to smoking in her first and second trimesters and ended up with a full-term baby weighing 5.5 pounds. And I'm wondering how her habits correlated with her baby's birth weight. So these are the citations for my 3 different studies. My first study, the purpose is to examine parental smoking during pregnancy and its association with low birth weight, small for gestational age, and preterm birth. The number of participants was 24,200 pairs of postpartum women and their newborns. And out of those, they were then broken down into 4 different groups: non-smoking, smoking, and then further broken down into how many cigarettes per day during each stage of their pregnancies and preconception. The data collection strategy was that 90 towns were randomly selected from a total of 369, and the women were interviewed by a structured questionnaire in their homes at 6 months postpartum, which gained information on patterns of smoking. The conclusions from this study was that each cigarette smoked per day during the 3rd trimester is estimated to contribute a 27-gram reduction in birth weight. Maternal smoking is significantly correlated with low birth weight and preterm delivery. Maternal smoking at preconception and at all stages of pregnancy affected the low birth weight, and the most significant effect on the birth weight of the offspring occurs during late pregnancy, especially in the case when mothers are heavy smokers, greater than 8 to 10 cigarettes per day. The weaknesses of this study was the size of women who admitted smoking greater than 20 cigarettes per day in their 2nd and 3rd trimesters was not large enough to make definitive conclusions. And the fact that this study was conducted at 6 months postpartum rather than pregnancy leaves room for women to miscalculate the amount of cigarettes they might have smoked in the past. The strength of the study was that there is a lot of data collected, thus making an overall strong study, and the fact that it was a randomized, unbiased group of mother and babies. Other comments is that coming to a woman's home and interviewing her about her smoking habits face-to-face may be too forward and causing women to possibly be dishonest. For a study such as this, I think that women would answer more openly if there was a system in place to keep their identities anonymous. My second study, the purpose was to assess the influence of maternal cigarette smoking during the first trimester for fetal global DNA methylation. The number of samples was subdivided into male and female, smoking and non-smoking, and then also divided into the placenta, the liver, and the small intestine. The design was that the fetal intestines and livers and placentas from the first trimester in the pregnancy were analyzed, and they were analyzed for their DNA methylation levels. The collection strategy was that the tissues were obtained with informed consent from the women at a legal abortion in Denmark. They underwent a structured interview process to obtain smoking habit information, and their identity remained anonymous. The conclusions was that smoking cessation prior to the 2nd trimester of pregnancy seemed to have the same health effect as smoking cessation before pregnancy or never having smoked. The study indicates that the first trimester maternal smoking is not manifested in immediate alterations in the DNA methylation. The weaknesses of this study is that because all of these babies were aborted, it is hard to know what long-term effects there could be. And also because these were unwanted pregnancies, a mother's care in her first trimester could have been different if she intended to carry the baby to term. The strength of this study is that having actual fetal tissues to examine at the time of the first trimester, and because these pregnancies were terminated, a mother might not have the same shame regarding being honest about smoking in her pregnancy, so chances are she would be honest and admit to smoking. Their comments is that this study had a large number of participants, but it lacked when broken down into smoking versus non-smoking. My third study is actually very similar to my second study. It has some of the same people in it and is done in the same location, but it was done 2 years later and focuses on the toxicology. The purpose of this study was that it is designed to assess the impact of exposure to maternal smoking on the first trimester, breaking down the expression of mRNA and the DNA methylation, and how it changes in pregnancy and birth. The participants included first trimester moms, identifying placentas and livers. The DNA was extracted using a certain purification kit, and they basically broke down the placenta and the liver and the small intestine. The collection strategy was that the fetal tissues were obtained with informed consent, same as the last one, via abortion in Denmark, and they also went through the structured interview process to obtain smoking habits. This one, though, the samples were assigned to the smoking exposed group if mothers smoked 1 or more cigarettes a day, and then they were broken down via how many cigarettes they were smoking. And the conclusions of this study was that it showed that there was no real change in the fetal DNA when the mother smoked in her first trimester. There was a change seen in the RNA of the liver of the placenta in the males, but only a change in placenta in the females. Changes were observed in the way that the methylation process works in DNA, which directly impacts the mRNA processes. The study revealed adding an extra process to detoxify the xenochemicals in the placenta had showed strains on the placenta due to the defensive response against toxicity from maternal smoking. The weaknesses of this study is that because there was a similar study done in the same area by some of the same researchers, it could have an unintentional bias to compare the two. The strength is that a very similar study was undertaken in the same area 2 years prior. This study was more in-depth than that one with a larger sample size, and because it had been performed in the past, I believe this actually gave the researchers an advantage, and the authors denied that there was no conflicts of interest. Other comments about this study is that it is more difficult to interpret to the average person, giving this study a resource to solidify clinical claims against or for smoking in the first trimester to a client would not be ideal, as it is very complex and confusing at times to understand. Thanks for watching.